Could you give us an insight into some of the key themes that are emerging in the US presidential campaign?
I think the biggest single issue is a concern amongst hard-working middle-class families that they are no better off now than they were 30 years ago, and a sense of growing income inequality. In other words, that the very rich are getting richer and are so rich that they're clever enough to find ways of not paying their taxes, whereas everybody else is having a rough time. Very similar to what we had in the UK. People aren't listening to us. What about what we really are? And then I think part of the appeal of Donald Trump, apart from the fact that he's managed to mix up political campaigning with what I might call reality television and entertainment, is that he addresses the resentment of ordinary people about political correctness. He says what people think but are told they're not allowed to say, and so the more outrageous sometimes that he becomes, the more that seems to go down well.
So who would be your tip to win the US election?
Well, my own view is that Hillary Clinton would be a very good president if she was elected. I'm not going to be rash enough to make a prediction of what happens on the 8th of November.
Turning now to Brexit, how does the rest of the world view the UK's decision to leave the European Union?
I think a lot of people were, first of all, surprised. Why did the Brits do this? Given that, as David Cameron used to say, we have the best of both worlds. We're not part of the Schengen migration single border arrangement. We're not part of Eurozone, so we haven't been dragged down by the Eurozone financial crisis. And in fact, in terms of growth of foreign investment and employment, we were record breakers in the European Union and doing very well. So a lot of people say, well, what's that all about? Americans are now saying to me, what are you going to do? Is this going to be for real or is it not? And if you are doing Brexit, what are the terms? Because we've got to take some investment decisions. Where are our European headquarters going to be? Do we want to invest in the UK, which we've invested in the past because it's our access to the single market, or not? So there's a sense of, not sure why you did that, to put it politely, but can you please now get on with it and let us know where things stand, because this is very important for our business interests. In Europe, I detect a sense that they wish we hadn't done this, even those who regard the British as the awkward squad, because actually the British have made major contributions to many of the good things about Europe over the years. But I think the Germans don't want to be left without another balancing significant player. They don't want to have to rely exclusively on the Paris-Berlin axis, which is often a bit wobbly. The French liked having us there despite everything, because in terms of diplomacy, security, foreign policy, defence, the Brits and the French were actually the two major players in the European Union, and I don't think they want to see us go. But I think the other thing is, our European partners are genuinely concerned that on the back of the British referendum, that this has brought to the fore a series of resentments and degrees of unhappiness amongst ordinary electors, which are present also elsewhere in the EU. And the more enlightened ones realise that Europe's got to start getting its act together now. So this is a wake-up call. They don't want to see others follow us. That means they can't afford to be too generous to us in terms of negotiations, but I think they have realised that this shows that there is a real urgency about Europe solving its problems.
So how do you view the outlook for London, given the fact that we are leaving the EU? Do you think it will affect London's position in the world?
My own view is that it's really important that the British government should negotiate a settlement over the future of our relationship with the EU, which preserves the importance of London and of the British economy in the context of our ability to export goods and services to the EU. We are a very important part of the single market. We are the second largest economy in the European Union. We are 40% of Europe's international financial services. We have got 300,000 young French people who help make our financial services work. We are genuinely a European asset. So I hope very much that we will find a way in the negotiations that will take place over the next year or two to preserve London's real strength as Europe's international financial capital. I think it's in everybody's interest to do that.
So how important is it for UK policymakers to really make it clear what the next steps are for us leaving the European Union? How important is that, do you think?
My own view is that this is important. There are many people elsewhere in the EU, in the United States, Japan, further afield, who wish us well, who are not vindictive about the UK British people's decision to exercise their sovereign right in the referendum, but who of course need to have a degree of clarity. So they are saying, are you or are you not going to be in the single market? Are you or are you not going to be in the customs union? Please let us know where this is going, and when are you going to trigger Article 50 negotiations? So there is, I think, a sense of wanting to know where things stand so that they can make plans. Many will want to be as supportive as we can. It is in our interest to ensure that the UK remains competitive and attractive a destination for investment, and indeed continues to look to our own requirements in terms of education standards. You know, we're bottom of the class in the OECD on basic literacy and numeracy, even if the best of our education is absolutely fantastic and well-beating. We've got to address all those other issues, as well as some of our infrastructure needs, which are being addressed now. But I think the rest of the world wants to see where the UK is going. I think that we have got an opportunity to be confident, to be resilient, to make a fresh start, but we need to get on with it, and in terms of conveying the right messages to our partners and potential investors abroad.
What's your favourite city?
My favourite city in terms of where do I get the greatest pleasure of just being there because of what it is and what it was and where it is geographically is probably Istanbul. If you ask me, what is my bet on which are going to be the really important, prosperous, successful, connected global cities of the future, I'm betting heavily on London. I think it's adaptable, strong, multicultural, global. It is the place where lots of dynamic young people from around the world come to live and work. It's a bit expensive, but it is adapting in a way that many other cities with a glorious past are not. So I'm a big believer in the future of London.
Thank you very much indeed.
My pleasure.